This video is going to explain why a lot of guys have good intentions but yet can't find a proper mate. It's also going to explain why a lot of businesses, they give us great value but still customers do not buy from them even with so much value. And it all boils down to how your customer sees you. How your customer sees you is most important compared to what you do to the customer. Now I'm going to explain to you more further, but let me just tell you that most of the ideas that I'm going to explain in this video come from the chapter 15 of this book, Diary of a CEO. It's a great book, and I really hope that you get to look for more ideas in this book. So before we get into it, if you feel like this title is going to be very important to somebody else, please always feel free to share this video, because it's that action that actually makes the channel grow and makes me actually get better books for you to break down. So now, in this context, we have the frame, right, and you have the picture. Now, the thing is that a lot of people focus on the picture, which is the actual thing that they provide. So if you're a business and you sell electronics, you want to provide your customers with as much electronics as possible. You want to give them the best options. You want to have the best features. That is the reason lots of mobile apps, right, they have this idea of let's bombard features. But if you zoom out and look at the best companies, so these are not the companies that have the best features, no? They're the companies that understand that it is the way your customer sees you that is more important than the product itself. That is why when I tell people that Steve Jobs is a genius, they say no, he's not smart. He's just somebody who wrote off the back of smart people. No. If you look at Steve Jobs' video on marketing, it's on YouTube right now. Just type Steve Jobs on marketing. You see when he says, our messaging is not to talk about speed and beats. Our marketing is to talk about the beliefs and values, because he understood that if your customer does not see you in a certain way, no matter how much effort you put, if you don't put in effort to change the way your customer sees you, you are wasting your time. Now, look at this. Coke and Pepsi. Right, we all know which is the bigger brand here. But something happened to Pepsi, right? Pepsi did a blind test for people, and they discovered that in the blind test, people preferred Pepsi. What that means is, in this case, the picture of Pepsi was better. But when they were showed the labels of which they wanted, they still chose Coca-Cola. That's because Coca-Cola has put in their best to manage the frame more than the picture. We keep saying, oh, please don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I'm sorry. Imagine walking into a bookstore and having to read all of the books in the bookstore to figure out which is the best book. That would be a losing battle. That is why the cover of the book is more important than the book itself. Although some books that don't really have nice covers or nice names, over time they get to like snowball and get big because a few people picked up that book and they discovered so much gold mine in that book. Now, for example, is Meditations. The name Meditations doesn't sound like a book anybody will pick up, or while somebody reads someone's journal. But that book by Marcus Aurelius, because of the depth of knowledge and the practicality of the knowledge, the way it's packaged, right? That is the book itself held. The book itself held so much value, but that was what years later. It took time, but it got there. So I'm not saying that you should ditch the value completely and focus on just how you're perceived. I'm saying that you need both of them. Now, for the guys who have good intentions, oh, I'm a husband material, why don't I have a partner up until now? I'm sorry, please check yourself very well, because if you listen to what women say in terms of relationship, in terms of prospective dating, they say things like, oh, I don't see you that way. Oh, you're like a friend to me. It's because how they see you is more important than what you are doing. Yes, you can influence how they see you, and the honest truth is that almost everything boils down to the five senses. So let me explain to you. Right? The brain likes to think in shortcuts. People think it's a bad thing, but it's not really a bad thing, right? Because if the brain has seen something happen, if the brain has discovered a pattern or something happening occasionally, it's going to channel the thought process into creating a shortcut for it. Now imagine having to see somebody, right, and be tearing down the image of that person every single time you meet the person just because you want to be open-minded. Your brain will just create a shortcut and conclude on the kind of person you're currently dealing with. That is how the brain works, and that is how the frame works in this situation, in this context. So now, other things now is, for example, I remember I spoke about Red Bull and how Red Bull has framed itself to be a medicinal drink, not really a high sugar drink. Now, there's a company called Whoop. Now, Whoop makes like all of these fitness trackers, fitness watches. Now, for the longest, Whoop owns that market of fitness tracking, but the customers have been complaining, asking Whoop to bring in, to make them have like a screen so people can check their time. But Whoop understands that the moment they make their choice, they'll be seen like they are competing with the smartwatches. So Whoop says, nope, we're going to stay here. We're going to serve our customers here. We're going to frame ourselves as a health and fitness tracker, not as a smartwatch. Because the moment they attach a screen to it, now think about it. And this is something that Steve Jobs understood very well. That if you make the customer dictate your product, you're fucked. I mean, I really hope I blocked that out. You're fucked. Because over time, when you allow them to dictate where you're heading to, right? It's a matter of time before it's a matter of time before you are a commoditized product. But instead, Apple knows that if they can frame themselves to the people, if they can frame themselves to be this company that's going on a journey, and customers are to move into the journey, not direct the journey, then now you're giving yourself a movement, because it's called a movement, and Apple is spearheading that movement. Now, right now, I really don't understand what's happening in Apple. All I'm just saying is that it's a remarkable company that was built on a very solid foundation. Now, if you look at, speaking of Apple keeps fascinating me because every single point of contact with Apple is super intentional. So, for example, it's everything from the way they design their product to the colors they choose. Now, let's look at how their stores mean a lot. When I read the biography of Steve Jobs put in months, right, just to decide how the store should look like, because he understood that if you walk into an electronics store, you got to realize that they're trying to jam pack all sorts of products in one location. So, for example, you go into a freezer section. Even till today, you go into a freezer section, you could see like 6 to 10 brands. You see 6 to 10 variations of one freezer. That is the energy saver, the inverter technology, the size, the number of liters, right? The technology behind it, the product name. You see about 10 to 15. But Steve Jobs understood that if you put a product in one location and there's enough space for just that one product, the customer will think that product is very, very valuable. Because if it's not valuable, why allocate this much space to just this one product? On two is, the customer is not bombarded with a lot of products. That is why when it is there, he's more focused. His interest is much more piqued as to why that product is there today. Apple is so intentional that the cartons that their products come in are well designed to the point where a lot of people keep those cartons. See how everything is very intentional, because Apple understands that if you want to be a luxurious brand, you have to put in that effort. And it's so good that Steve just made the statement, right? That the time when they were creating the, what do you call it? I think it was the Mac systems, the all-in-one systems, and they're looking for the plastic tubes at the back of it. He said his dad told him that if you're trying to build a wardrobe, you don't put plywood, a cheap wood, at the back of an expensive wardrobe. And his point here was simple, that your desktop is going to be an expensive or a luxurious material. Just because your customers will not see the back of it doesn't mean you should put something that's cheap there. And this idea has run through centuries and decades. So now, as a business, if you understand that, if you keep understanding that how you are seen is more important than what you're putting out there, although what you're putting out there can be influenced, and influencing them should be about a game of psychology, should be a game that is intentional. Yes, sometimes it could feel shallow, but I'm sorry, like I've said, how they see you is more important than what you're doing. Okay, so now let's bring it to the context of women. And if you're a man and you've been on this, if you've been trying to look at you're trying to arrange yourself in the dating market, and you have been getting online advice, one thing you get to realize that people say is that people say is sorry, regarding dating is you have to control the frame. The frame is, how does she see you? She's seeing you as somebody who is dominant, and how can you make her see you as somebody who is dominant? To be very frank, can you fake these things? Yes, you can fake them for not too long. So now, if you want them to see you as somebody who is dominant, you're going to have to start making decisions that make you feel like you're dominant. You're going to have to dress like you're dominant. You're going to have to walk like you're dominant. Now, if you hear my voice carefully, you will get to see that it's different from when I started YouTube. And that's because I kind of realized that when a lady sees you, trust me, she kind of has a level of attraction towards you. The moment you open your mouth, she has a different level. If your voice is not matching what you appear to look like, it's a turn off. But if it matches or it supersedes what she's expecting from you, then also it's a interesting game changer. So I really hope that I could give it different instances, because this particular point of the frame and the picture being the most important thing, the first part about this thing is so important that I really wish you guys can understand it. That yes, you have character, yes, you are deep rooted, but at the same time, you have to do the shallow stuff. Yes, some YouTube videos are very deep in some knowledge, but if they don't have good thumbnails, if they don't have good titles, it's going to be an uphill battle. Will people see them and maybe follow those videos? Maybe, yeah, years later. But the point is that the deep stuff and shallow stuff have to be taken care of. Focus on the frame. I will think about it. In the museum, in museums, who do you think use cheap frames for their drawings? You think about it. Somebody can go to a museum and put up a fake piece of art, a trashy piece of art. But just because of it's a museum, they try their possible best to make sure that the frame is more important. Sometimes they won't put barricades, they put glass, they decorate a piece of art. Think about it. Think about it. The museums in the West, they insult Africa for its artifacts, right? No, they insult Africa, but yet they have African artifacts right there. And this artifact that was produced by the places that they insult is so treasured, right? Think about it. It's so treasured, it's so admonished to the point where it's given its own space in a museum, blocked and everything, secured, highly secured, to the point where if you go too close, alarms trip off. If you touch them, you're probably getting some ridiculous bill, some ridiculous punishment, some ridiculous sanctioning. So I just feel like I've given you different instances to get to realize that the frame is more important. And if you feel like you're a guy and you want to work on the frame, or you want to work on, if you're a guy, you're a business, you're trying to work on the frame, feel free, let's talk in the comment section. Let's see how we can bounce ideas. Let's have a one-to-one conversation. How can we control the frame, either it's in your business or in your dating life? So thank you very much. Like I said, share this video with somebody who you know is going to find you valuable, because it's that kind of selfless act. It's those selfless acts that actually help the channel grow. And when the channel grows, obviously we get to have better and quality ideas to share. It's also a way of making me realize that my message is out there and it's helping somebody. Yeah. So thank you very much. Go ahead and share the video. I'll talk to you soon.